Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Moving Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Zoe Taylor, founder of Moving Medicine Partners. We are a national organization of realtors that are married to doctors, kind of weird niche, but oddly needed. We help physician families relocate, not just knowing like the process, but having a lot of empathy for what you're going through right now, too. And we have got Amanda Nolen with us today, a physician spouse who was in the thick of it. She's a realtor, but she's been through some dynamics in her medical training journey alongside her spouse. And a lot of that translates into how she cares for her clients today. And I cannot wait to get to know you better today, Amanda. You got a story.
Just a little bit, yes.
I
Moving
love it.
from northern Michigan to the most southern island in the Caribbean. Yeah, Grenada. We went to med school at SGU. So they actually produce the most doctors in the US that med school does. So,
Really? I didn't know that. Okay, so start from the beginning.
okay.
When did you meet your husband?
Yeah, we met in Lansing, Michigan. I was a first year teacher and we met online back when the dating apps, I think, were an okay place to meet people. I hear it's scary these days.
Scary girl,
So
scary.
somehow it worked out for me. I'm not saying it will work for everybody though.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a teacher at that time and I was teaching middle school math. And then I was moving. I was in transition, like our families always are, I feel like, in this profession too. But he followed me and I ended up teaching in Grayling, Michigan, which is northern Michigan. So we've traveled a lot. And he got a job at a hospital and his love of medicine kind of grew from there. He was working at the front desk answering phone calls and kind of just moved his way up, went to CMU, which is Central Michigan University, and got his undergrad in neuroscience. And we had a 1-year-old. And then he just hit me with, I think I want to go to medical school.
That's crazy because I feel like so many physicians know like immediately, like from high school, they're like, I'm going to med school. You know what I mean? Like that's like their original onset. Like, this is what I'm doing. It's so unusual to hear like them kind of fall into it. You know what I mean? I love that it's something that he knows that he wants because it wasn't like a predetermined decision in his mind. It was a growth, slow growth. But what were your feelings when he was like med school? Were you like, great?
Uh, yeah, I had a lot of mixed feelings, to be completely honest with you. I was like, at that point, 4 or 5 years into my teaching career and was like, I'm the math chair. I was kind of feeling like I got this down. I've got a 1-year-old. I'm a working mom. This is going really well. We had bought a home near a lake and we were adding a ton of value to that house, renovating a kitchen, doing all these things. I thought my life was really good and turning out kind of the way I thought it was going to.
We're set. We're solid.
Yeah. And then he was like, well, I didn't get into a US med school, but I got into a Caribbean medical school. And that really just totally shifted my mindset. We had to really think through logistically what were we going to do? You know, we sold a house, sold our home, sold most of our possessions, flew with a 1.5-year-old and a dog all the way across the world, shipped some bags of things.
That's bananas. Like, it's one thing to go to med school when you're single, solo. Like, is it Caribbeans or Caribbeans?
I think it's the West Indies, technically, the Caribbean. It's the southernmost island in the Caribbean, in the West Indies.
Caribbean. Okay. So
Mhm.
there's one thing to like, I'm going to go to med school. I'm single and solo and I'm going to move and be there as a, nah, he lovingly brought along a wife, a child, and a dog. And you were like, okay.
Yeah. I don't know, signing up for punishment, I guess, in this lifetime. But Wade says it really well. He's my husband. He said, I never felt like I could accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish in life until I met you. And he's like,
Oh,
you have empowered me so much that I feel like now I can fully reach my potential because I never had a stable environment growing up. He didn't have your typical married parents. His mom was 15 when she had him. And so he had a lot of childhood adversity that he had to overcome. So his mom split out of the state he was living in when he was a senior in high school. So he couldn't get the scholarship that he was given because he didn't have a parent in the state. So he didn't go to college right away. He just worked some odd jobs. And once he followed me to Grayling, I was like, maybe you should think about school. What do you want to do? And that's when his journey kind of began into like discovering what he really was called to be.
wow. What tenacity. I mean, bravery. Like, to go to med school is like no small feat. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big decision with like a lot of courage and a lot of I feel like you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself and to build that on your own without necessarily having the familial system like supporting you. But like that was you. You were that. Like he had you. That is amazing. And then you followed him to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So our story begins. I feel like that was the prelude, right? Now we're
Yeah.
character building. We're in the Caribbean. We've got a kid, we've got a dog. Did you buy something there or were you like renting something?
Luckily, there was a strong student presence already on the island that they had this like footsteps buddy they connected you with. And so it was this like, can we live on campus? Do we live off campus? Where do we live? What's safe? What's not safe? There was all these unknowns. And so we finally landed with, okay, we basically had flipped our first home together. So we had a big chunk of money. We didn't necessarily want to buy something, but we wanted to make sure we had a safe home for our family because we're not the typical med student. So we rented a house at the top of a hill. It was really steep hill that we had to either climb up or drive up. So we ended up buying a vehicle. But you drive on the opposite side of the road, on the opposite side of the vehicle. There's a lot of like scary things about that. But we bought a vehicle sight unseen from another student who was leaving.
Mhm.
And that's how we made it work. We did have a beautiful gated home in an apartment complex with some other students, and we felt safe. There was beautiful beaches for us to explore. My daughter actually had a monkey like jump on her head and take a banana from her hand when she was 2. So cool experience, to be honest. Like we got to see and do a lot of cool things that we wouldn't have been able to do
But
otherwise. And I was able to take a break from teaching. And I wouldn't say I regretted that decision. It was just scary and a big change.
I bet. And then the plot thickens because COVID. So you
COVID.
guys were there for like a year
Yes. Yeah, it
and
was just under a year.
so you uproot your whole family, you sell your house in Michigan, you get settled into this crazy country with banana stealing monkeys, and then the world wants to go even more bananas and you guys got kicked off the island, right?
Yeah, the school followed their hurricane evacuation plan. Wasn't a hurricane, but that was what they felt was the safest to do. It's a second world country. They don't have the health care to support their own citizens. On top of that, a ton of students because SGU is a major medical school, but it's also a major vet school. So they had a lot of students on the island for that. And we all got shipped off in some airplanes. Take 2 bags with you. Pets you just had to bring on the plane with you. It was just a little
It was
bit
like an
chaotic.
emergency evacuation. It wasn't like you get a week to plan. It was like pack your bag and get out.
Yeah, you had like 4 locations you could choose from to fly to. So we actually flew to Canada, Toronto, Canada, to drive 5 hours from Canada to Midland, which is my hometown in Michigan.
What happened to the car that you'd bought in Grenada? Did you have to leave that behind, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we left it behind and ended up selling it to, I don't know if it was a local or another student. You did have the choice to stay behind if you wanted to. Nobody really knew how long we were going to be shut down for COVID. I think a lot of us thought we'd be back for maybe a month and then we'd come back to our apartments. But my landlord ended up having to pack up all of our stuff for us and give it away, sell it, whatever she did with it. I don't really know.
So you got settled in Grenada, you got kicked out. You're now homeless, flying to Canada, driving somewhere, and you guys chose Midland, Michigan, which is your hometown, correct? Born and raised.
Yeah.
Were you able to find housing? And then, like, you guys did online schooling from then moving forward for quite some time, right? Because it wasn't a month, it was a couple of years.
Yes. We temporarily were staying at a family member's condo. They were snowbirds. COVID was March. So they were down in Arizona and they were like, you can stay in our condo. We just started searching for a rental. We got a rental. And then we had made that decision of like, do I go back to work teaching? Like, what's our future look like? So
Mhm.
I did 1 more year of teaching during COVID. I taught kindergarten. And then we got pregnant with our second daughter, Amelia. And my husband just came to me and said, this isn't working anymore. Like, I can't study. You don't have any more days to take off for when you have a sick kid or you're recovering from the birth of our child. And I had to make a tough decision of what does the future look like for our family.
Is that where real estate came in?
Yes, that is where
Insert real estate. That's awesome. I mean, it's a
we're.
fun, flexible pivot. I feel the same way. I got into real estate when I had a 2-month-old and 2-year-old, and my ex-husband was like, "Hey, financially, the practices are kind of like sinking ships at the moment. We need some extra funds. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? I have babies and like daycare's expense. I don't know what do you, and he's like, real estate. And I'm like, I guess, like, ooh,
Same.
great decision.
That's what my husband said. He's like, you should just quit your job. And I'm going, okay, who's going to pay for anything? Like, we bought this house. We actually ended up purchasing a house as I was teaching my last year teaching. I'm like, well, I've got a W-2 job. Maybe we should try to buy another house. So we did, just moved into that. And then my husband proposes that I quit my job. And I'm just like, um, make it make sense. But it, I ended up selling more in real estate my first year and making more than I would have made if I stayed teaching. And my life was way more flexible. I didn't have to put my daughter into daycare. She was just on my lap or in her bouncer or along with me for the ride. So it worked
My
out.
kids come to lots of open houses. My kids show lots of houses with me. When they were little, they were really good at just like sitting on an iPad and like being quiet when I needed them to. Listen, real estate's a very family friendly job.
Yeah. I mean, we make it work, honestly. And I feel like that's the attitude that you have to have in real estate is just like, I'm going to problem solve the heck out of anything that comes my way. And that's what we do all day long. So,
All day long. That's all we do. Well, I love this story so far. And I know that we've spent like a lot of time on it. So like our podcast listeners are like, you have to be entertained. Like, come on, be honest. This is absolutely bananas. Bananas. So you guys were at home for 2 years. You quit your job. You started real estate. I love that. He had a final year of med school. What was like match day? What has the move been like? And where are you guys at right now in your training life?
yeah. So we actually, Midland wasn't where our story stopped. We had to go to Metro Detroit for clinical years. So that was year 3 and 4 of medical school. That was really hard for me because now I've got 2 children and I'm leaving my support system, my brothers, my parents, like just the help that I've found, the community that I found. And I had to just move to Metro Detroit, trusting that this is the next step in the process. And we're going to hopefully come back to Midland, my hometown. And luckily for us, we were able to do that. We matched to our number one choice, My Michigan Health in Midland. And my husband's just wrapping up his first year of residency there. And he's just doing phenomenal. And we're feeling very blessed that we got to come back to a support system. But while in Detroit, like I had to build a support system. And not only that, I'm in a place with a lot more traffic, a lot more stressors on the day to day, a lot less space, a lot less comfort of what I'm used to in a rental that is a lot smaller than what I would have liked for a family of 4. But, we learn to overcome and make do and find our village. And I feel like I've gotten really good at over the years is just finding that village and helping others to find it as well.
I love that. I know that we're talking about Midland on this episode, but like you have good feedback after your experience in Detroit. Like, what were the things that you would recommend to people going to Detroit and like getting connected to the community? What was your saving grace there?
So there is a side by side in Detroit that you could definitely join if you're interested. And that is a great way to get connected. I happen to love reading. And I was like, I wonder if I can find some physician spouses who also had to relocate here and love reading. So I, on a whim, just kind of made my own Facebook group, Med Spouses of Metro Detroit, and started, seeing if I could make some friends. There was only one girl who showed up to my first book club, and we became really fast friends. They actually are done with training and they've moved away, but we still talk like on a weekly basis. And I'm planning a trip this July with another resident spouse that I met down there because of the book club. And so we're going to plan some Michigan trips because Michigan's a new state to her and she wants to explore. And I've got some really good recommendations for some summer trips. So we're going to explore this summer together.
I love that. And what did he match into? What's the specialty?
Family medicine.
Well, I love all of the backstory. I love where you've gotten. I love that you're almost done with training. It gets better. Do we say that anymore? Because does it really get better? It gets
Oh,
different.
no.
There's still stressors. Listen, they still work a lot of hours. We're still on call all the time.
Yeah, he keeps telling me it's going to get better. He keeps saying, like, I'm only going to work 40 hours max. Like, family medicine, like, we're really hopeful that, like,
Yeah,
then it's going to be like a 5 and maybe not as much on call, but we know contracts are negotiable. So there we are.
they are. That they are. Get a good contract attorney to make sure that you have maximums on those allowances for sure. Family med, primary care is a lot different life than a lot of specialties with a little bit more flexibility. So he is not wrong there. He is not wrong there. I love that. So you mentioned relocating cross country. I mean, like when you're talking to clients about relocating to another state, you of all people probably know like how to pack, how to move. Does that translate a lot in your client interaction whenever they're like, I don't know how I'm going to get from point A to point B? And you're like, listen.
Yeah. If there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to help you figure this out. Yes, for sure. Doing it myself multiple times has definitely played into that and been helpful. Doing it on a budget, right? Because we're still in residency. So I've learned the cost effective way to do things. And the biggest thing, though, the biggest thing I think is just helping them get connected to the community because it's so overwhelming to move and pack all your things, but it's even more overwhelming to figure out what is life going to look like. So I really try to just get to know the residents that are moving to our area and what do they find joy in? How are they going to fit into this community and what really fits their lifestyle? And so I think that's the biggest piece of this is just how can I feel comfortable in this new location?
Well, and then who
Mm.
better to help someone in Midland? You know, like that's not a city that like I knew where it was before this call. For those of you listening to the show, I've said it before. I'm geographically challenged. So I had to Google the state of Michigan and I'm like, okay, yeah, looks like a glove. There's the thumb. And Midland is in the web of the thumb because she was like center of the state. I'm like, listen, it's kind of like off centered. It's in the web. It's in the thumb
Yeah.
web. So that was kind of interesting to see. What's the population of Midland?
I think it's around 50,000. Oh, you
Oh,
put
it's
me on
so
the spot.
cute.
I mean, yeah,
That's
it's
so sweet. I love
not huge, but we call it the Tri-Cities. So it's Saginaw, Bay City, and Midland. And Bay City is the Bay. So that is actually the web. And that's like 20 minutes to the east. And then we've got Mount Pleasant, which is about 30 minutes to the west. So I cover geographically probably a bigger area than most realtors. And My Michigan Health is a big hospital organization that covers all of this as well. They even actually go up to Alpena, which is like up here, like Lake Huron. They have a
For those of you
rural
that are
prep.
only listening on the podcast and you're not watching the YouTube video, every geographical reference that she's putting up her hand like a mitten and she's pointing to her fingers and stuff. So it's actually kind of entertaining.
When you're a
I
Michigander,
can't do
that's
that in
what we
Missouri.
do.
We're like this like oblong square thing, so it doesn't work. I don't know. So that's hilarious. But no, like how perfect for you. Like you were a teacher and I think that sometimes teachers translate into the best realtors just because like you guys know how to educate people about the process along the way just because you know how to educate people. I have found some of the best realtors that I work with are teachers. In addition, as a med spouse and not just med spouse, like from the beginning through the trenches, through COVID, this is like a Dora the Explorer adventure med school experience of like going to a third world, like this is crazy town. And then having the empathy and understanding of the med spouse life and all of the moves. And then also, this is your hometown. So people coming to this area, you were born here, you were raised here, you know, the ins, the outs. It is not a giant community. So, like, for you to be able to help integrate people into the community, into things that they'll love and be connected with, like, no brainer. Like, that's amazing that you have this much connection and this much love for your hometown. The fact that you're like, no, I just want to be home. Like, I don't want to go to Detroit. I don't want to go to Grenada. I don't want to be homeless in Toronto. Like, the magnet to pull you back home just keeps sucking you back in. It's so sweet.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel like it is the best place to raise a family. I was raised here and maybe I'm a little biased, but the community here is actually very much about being family friendly and connecting people into the community. We have this little Instagram called Max Loves Midland, and it literally is just to draw people into what areas of Midland do they fit with, do they vibe with, and how can they connect with our city. I do have a big love for Midland for sure.
The other thing that I really love about your experience is that you bought and remodeled a home at a very young age, made a profit, and then turned around and bought a home again in a stage of life where a lot of people are like, that doesn't make sense to buy a home before med school. It doesn't make sense to buy a home during residency. For some people, that's, you know, their thought process. But you had enough confidence from your first go around. I'm assuming that's why you were like, no brainer. What was that like? Buying, remodeling, selling? Has that been a positive? I'm sure it's helped you in your real estate life too to understand identifying homes that have equity growth and stuff.
Yeah, I think it started actually probably when I was a kid. My dad is a contractor. He's retired now, but I remember being in middle school and on my hands and knees grouting for tile in our front entryway because he built on 3 sides of our house to make it bigger as we were growing. So that's probably where it started. But yeah, when I got my teaching job in Grayling, there was a foreclosure for $52,000 and it was a new build. 3-bedroom, 3.5 bathrooms, like a mile from this lake, Higgins Lake. And I was like, for 50,000, like,
What's the catch?
yeah, I can afford that. The only catch was there was no kitchen. I had to put a kitchen in, and well, that's cool. I get to design my own kitchen. So I was 24 when I bought my first house, and I had some paint parties with my friends. We were all in our 20s. Let me buy you some pizza and beer and help me paint this house that is freshly drywalled, but has never been painted ever. So it was actually a really fun experience, if I'm being
I
honest.
love
And
that for you.
eventually, I was able to buy the lot next door for $5,000. I mean, it was just very affordable, and the timing worked out well. And then IKEA was
Can I
building.
ask you what you sold it for? Because that's just how my brain works.
Yeah, I wish I would have kept it because today it's probably worth $300,000, but I sold it for 135. So I bought it for
Still
50,
amazing.
sold it for 135. Yeah, it worked out really well for a teacher. So that was nice.
I also bought my first house when I was 24. I bought mine for $25,000. I
There
put
you go.
$9,000 into it and I sold it for 54. So listen, I didn't turn and burn quite as well as you, but that was like the early days. Same thing though. My mom and dad actually built the house that I grew up in. Everybody in my family was like contractors and real estate investors. It's crazy when it's kind of like, so many kids that their parents are doctors. It's easy for the kids to go to med school. It's so easy for kids of parents who are investors or contractors or flippers to have the confidence to be able to do that. Like, oh yeah, I've seen this happen. Like easy to replicate. The confidence in both of those scenarios is identical. So that's awesome that you were able to utilize the influence that you had as a child from your parents to give you the confidence to do that.
Yeah, and they just have a really strong work ethic. But I will say, from having seen my husband go through residency, it's been really hard and it's been draining and it's been tiresome. And he barely has time to do the things that he needs to do for basic self care. So, would I recommend the average resident to go out there and buy a fixer upper home? Definitely not. I wouldn't recommend that. And that's the reality. And especially if you don't have a partner, like someone who can step up and coordinate contractors or get quotes or bids for things, like it's much more difficult. But during med school, we did buy a second home. That one we bought for 135,000. Didn't need a ton of work, so we just changed out some light fixtures. And at 2020, we were able to get a 2.5% interest rate. So when we moved to
Can
Detroit,
we just
that
play a little violin in recognition of how much we miss those days?
right.
Uh,
I wish, but yeah. So we can rent that out, cash flow really well. So then when we moved back for residency, we obviously had the option to go back to the home that we owned, or now we qualify for a physician loan. And so
yeah.
with our girls getting older, they were 7 and 4. One bathroom probably isn't going to cut it any longer. So we were able to get a 2,200 square foot ranch with 2.5 bathrooms, and we're still under 300,000. So it's affordable to live here, family friendly, and we are loving it. Our house has needed some love as well, but we're working on that. And luckily I have, oh, you can see the drywall patches on the wall right there.
I
So
do.
I'm
I don't want
slowly
to talk about the light fixture that it's not adhered to my ceiling and is dangling above my head right now because I need to finish wiring it. Listen, we're all a work of progress. We are, our houses are. It's never done.
yeah, 100%. So work in progress.
Actually, like, hold on, paint. Look at this.
Yeah,
This is just my life.
it's
No,
probably somewhere in my
I
hair.
think it's
Yeah.
in my hair too. Yeah. Yes, this is the life of real estate. Actually, this isn't even paint from my house. I had to go paint one of my listings this morning real quick before it went active for showings. There was some door frames that I was not happy with. So,
Yep. We do what we
but
have
that's
to
the other
do.
thing. When you have agents that are like willing to get dirty and like have flipped homes themselves, I put in way more work than I should into my listings because I don't want to call myself psycho. Like that sounds a little aggressive. Detail
Detail
oriented.
oriented. I was just going to say detail
Detail
oriented.
oriented. I
Yes.
am detail oriented. We're going to go with that.
Yep.
And if my clients are not willing to see all of the things that I see, then I just take care of them myself.
I'm with you. I one time was wiping down a fridge and found maggots, and I was like, oh,
Nope.
that's
Nope. That's where I would be like, I'm not.
I've learned to hire some cleaners, but I've definitely been to show up to stage a house and been like, oh shoot, this is not gonna fly. So
Girl, I was changing out switch plate covers this morning because I didn't like that they were like a little dingy. So I went and bought switch plate. That's the attention to detail that I'm like a little. I'm
well,
not a crazy person. I just really care about your home looking the right way. Okay.
and
It's my
sometimes those smaller details like
Yep.
that will get the seller like $10,000 like for these 50-cent switch plate covers. So it's worth it. They're hiring the right person by hiring you because you are so detail oriented.
Well, same you. Same you. That's what I'm trying to say though. But for
Yeah.
those of you listening, if you're selling your home, oh my gosh, touch points. You think about what's the first people when they see when they pull up your landscaping? What's the first thing that they touch? Your front door handle. If it is like brass and chipped and faded and dingy and gross and not functioning properly, and the agent's sitting there struggling to open the dang deadbolt, you're entering the home with anxiety and deferred maintenance. So fresh paint of door on the front door, fresh door handle almost every time, and then light switches because you're going around the house switching them on and off. If they don't match, because like the switch is white and then the plate is almond or whatever the color is, nope, all of those have to be changed to be the same thing, whichever one it is. Just make them all match. Those
Mhm.
details, the touch points, what they're interacting with in the home. I'm a
Mhm.
crazy person. Those
Oh,
things matter so much, so much. Okay. Pivoting.
mhm.
So on the buy side, we are talking about your area. You were talking about some price points of homes that I'm sure some of these people listening are like $50,000, 130,000, a $300,000 house that was 2,200 square foot ranch with 2.5 bathrooms. I'm a little jealous right now, and I have an affordable city. So, what is the average price point for a home in your market?
Probably right around $250,000 for your average home.
Three
It's
bedroom,
affordable.
two bathroom, 1,600 square feet.
Yep,
I
exactly.
feel like that's what an average American home typically is. So when you say that, I just for that, that's
It is.
amazing. So do you find like a lot of residents end up purchasing homes whenever they move there?
It's a mix for sure because I think that our area isn't as desirable for residents, and we typically struggle to fill all of our seats, which is disappointing because I think it's such a great location, but it's just not well known and it's a little bit more rural. So if you're looking for something in emergency medicine that has a little bit more action, it's probably not your first top choice. But I do have a resident who's going to Covenant for emergency medicine residency, and he's buying a home in not Saginaw City, because there's some areas in Saginaw City that's not the most desirable, but there is some areas outside of the city that we found, and he's got a great updated ranch home, and we have it under contract for 175,000, and he's so excited
Nice.
about it. And he doesn't
That's
have a dual income family. It's just going to be him, but he can afford that on his residency income, and he's got a dog, so he's excited for this backyard and just all the things.
So tell me about Michigan. You're clearly Michigan obsessed. You've been like all over the darn place in that state. Tell me what's the weather like? Because I hear Michigan and I start shivering with the assumption that like, ooh, cold.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been experiencing some weird weather lately, but we are surrounded by water. So that does come with some interesting winters because you have lake effect snow that can happen. So depending on where you are in the state, you can get upwards of 3 feet of snow, which is a lot. It's-
Do you guys get 3 feet of snow in Midland? Because I know it kinda depends on, like, where you're at with the lake and the wind and the stuff. My daughter lived in Cleveland, which is, like they get lake effect snow over there. But you guys are in the middle of the lake, like, you're surrounded on 3 sides by lake. That's a lot of water. It's a lot of cold
right.
water.
It is a lot of water. We luckily don't get 3 feet of snow. We get maybe about a foot total. So it's a little bit more manageable, but you can still drive, within an hour, you can find some ski hills and go skiing. You can have beach days that are day trips from our area. So
Clearly
it,
not when there's snow out.
well, true, only the summers, but there is no summer like a Michigan summer because we have the most inland lakes than any other state. And we have these great lakes that really look like an ocean. So you kind of have both of best worlds within driving distance of wherever you live.
I remember the first time that I went to the Great Lakes, I was in awe because, I'm in Missouri and we've got Lake of the Ozarks. Like, we have enough lakefront that's longer than the entire coast of California beachfront, like, just in that one lake system. It's crazy town, right? But
Mhm.
the lakes are kind of like narrow. They're like narrow channels, so you can see from one side to the other wherever you are. But when you stand on the Great Lakes, you have waves like an ocean. It is lapping like an ocean, and you do not see the other side. They are massive. They're just massive. And I didn't realize, I mean, like I saw them on a map, but I just didn't comprehend it till I stood there and I'm like, wow, you really just can't see the other side of this lake. It looks like an ocean. It's beautiful. That's so cool that you guys have that.
Yeah, and so it's a great state for outdoor hiking and boating, canoe, kayaking. We've got so many great waterfalls. So we've got some islands you can explore. It's just a really cool mix of outdoor adventures.
Do a lot of attendings have second homes, lake homes? Is it a state that a lot of people do like, recreational homes for a second home property?
Definitely. A lot of people call it the up north, right? We're going to go up north for the weekend is a
Yeah.
common phrase that we use because that means you're going to go to a lake somewhere and be at a cottage or go explore a beach. So definitely.
When you say up north, because you guys are in the thumb web, how far does it take to get up north? Like, what do they mean by up north? Like the tip of your middle finger or like
Yeah. Typically for my area, up north means the top third of the lower peninsula because we do have the upper peninsula as well. The upper peninsula is even more rural and has some mountains, and that's a good spot for like waterfalls and stuff. But some typical places are Traverse City because they have a ton of wineries. They're known for their cherry orchards. And then you've got Sleeping Bear Dunes. So you can go dune boarding, dune buggies to ride around those. And then you just have another big one would be Mackinac Island because there's no motorized transportation. So you take a ferry to the island. You can stay on the island or you can go for a day trip. You can bike around the island. It's like 8 mile bike ride and there's some cool rock features and they make fudge. And it's kind of like tipping your hat to the olden days of like, this is how things were done, but it's a really fun experience. So
sounds like our Branson city. Are there any nuances when purchasing real estate that anyone needs to be aware of in Michigan? I know that like Illinois has some taxes when you sell your property that other states don't have. And sometimes there's like extra taxes outside of, residential living that some people aren't aware of, or when you're purchasing extra inspections or extra insurance that you need to consider for the area. Can you think of anything that might be different about Michigan than other states or cities?
yeah, I mean, we're surrounded by water. So, flood insurance is one thing that is important to keep in mind. Checking flood maps to see if what you're purchasing is in a flood area. And flood insurance can be expensive. So, when you're thinking about affordability, you definitely want to keep that in mind. Lakes in general, every lake has a different selling point, I will say, or like different activities that you can do on it. So, that affects value. And so, hiring someone who's local who really understands. We had some dam failures in our area. So it was actually a series of 4 dams that failed. So once the first one failed, that lake emptied into the next lake and it created this unfortunate event where you may have had a lake home and now you don't. And so that surprisingly didn't plummet the values of those homes. But we're in the process right now of rebuilding, and our first dam is fixed and it's refilling right now, which is really exciting for those homeowners to have their lake back. But it came with some really hefty assessments. So, one is an ongoing assessment that's going to be yearly for maintenance so that this doesn't happen again. And then the other is a 40-year assessment for the rebuilding, just for the capital that it took to rebuild that. And we got a lot of federal grants for that and state, but it still is affecting those homeowners. And aside from that, we do have a Michigan state transfer tax when you sell your property, which I think is pretty typical, but that's all I can think of for now.
Is the transfer tax just a state, or do some counties and cities have additional assessment taxes?
A lot of our smaller villages have a village tax. So Farwell is one of those that I can think of. And so it's definitely area dependent, but it's not super typical. In the Metro Detroit area, I found that a lot of those areas required C of O or certificate of occupancy. It's not as common in my area, but having your seller get that done before you list a house is really important so you can tackle anything that they want repaired before you put it on the market and then have buyers knocking on your door.
That's interesting because St. Louis has that, and it's a very uncommon thing. So it's just like basically certain municipalities require basic, like a safety spot check. So, buyers are going to do their inspections and they're going to negotiate those things out. If there's an FHA loan with predications or something, that's totally separate. This is like another inspection that gets
Mhm,
completed on the house that the seller is in charge of ordering,
mhm.
scheduling, and then making all of the repairs and then having it rescheduled for them to come through and review and make sure that everything is like smoke detectors and handrails and firewall barriers and GFCIs, but it's another inspection during the home selling process that can be a giant pain in the booty. So it's interesting that they have that as well, but not you, but certain municipalities.
Yep. Yep.
Interesting, interesting. Well, I really love that you were able to join us today. Your city sounds absolutely charming. Your state sounds amazing. I honestly don't think I've ever been to Michigan, and I've been to most states, but you're one that I haven't. But you said skiing, and my ears perked up because I'm assuming you had way more snow than Colorado did last year because they had basically none, and it was a dud. It was a dud year. So I will consider that next time whenever we're having like a hard ski year to come up your way and come visit because that sounds amazing.
That would be great. We'd love to have you.
3 feet of fresh powder.
Yes. Literally in April, I was showing houses in a t-shirt to a resident who's from the Petoskey area. And he was like, I was going to go skiing today. We have 2 feet of snow and I drove 2 hours south and you're in a t-shirt. He's like, I didn't expect this. So even within our own state, we can have very wide variety of weather. So
That's amazing. Well, for anyone moving to Michigan in general, I feel like you are just a wealth of knowledge, specifically if you're going to the web of the thumb, that area there around Midland and the Bay, you said. And then if you have questions also about Detroit, she's a great resource just because she was there for a couple of years and could connect you to the right person. But anyone listening to the show, how would you recommend that they get in touch with you, Amanda?
you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is home in mid Michigan. And I also have a website, homeinmidmichigan.com, or you can just look me up on Facebook, Amanda Nolen. So I'd be happy to connect.
All right. And for anyone listening, the show notes down below, no matter where you are, should have all of her contact information included. Amanda, I'm so thankful that you were able to come on today, share your story, share your experience, your knowledge, and your wisdom. I'm so thankful for you to be a part of this organization. You're just an absolute rock star, and I've loved getting to know you over the years.
Thanks. So I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Until next time, babe. Bye.
Bye.